Welcome to Shorr Solutions, the podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Mara Shorr. I'm a partner in the medical practice management company, yes, Shorr Solutions. Who's the other host, you may ask? Easy answer. That would be my father, our founding partner, Jay Shorr. Together, we now have an amazing team and clients across the country. Listen as we chat, converse, strategize, and commiserate over life in the aesthetic medical industry. It's time for you to listen, learn, and be inspired as we help you kickstart your practice, because who doesn't want a little more help? Welcome to Shorr Solutions, the podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Shorr Solutions, the podcast. Today, we are really going to be focusing on a topic that we have people come to us and ask about again and again. Not that we ever really focus on unpopular topics, but we're going to go with this particular topic. And we're going to talk about how to cross-market to existing patients, because I hear again and again when people say, oh, we need to do more marketing in order to make more money. And there's such a big gap in between there. So we are really going to focus today on that. And for that, I have brought in an incredible colleague of ours. We've had the pleasure of knowing each other for some time. And so it is my absolute honor to welcome Risa Goldman Luksa with Goldman Marketing here to Shorr Solutions, the podcast. Risa, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you so much, Mara, for having me here. I am excited to be part of the Shorr podcast.
Yes, we're excited to have you. And by we, I mean me today. So I'm glad we're able to do this. And I know you and I have had some great conversations in conference hallways and in between talks, because we both participate a lot on the lecture circuit here in the cosmetic and aesthetic industry. That's where we met. And so despite the fact that we are on two very different coasts, I'm here in Florida, you're in California, but we really have very similar passions, both as women in business, female business owners, but also just, how we can help our clients grow. And so let's go ahead and let's get started. Tell me a little bit about Goldman Marketing. Tell me a little bit about what you do for your clients. And that way our listeners will really know who it is that they're hearing from today.
All right, sounds good. So, as Mara said, my name is Risa, and Goldman Marketing Group was born in 2010. So we're almost 13 years now, and we are a full-service marketing consulting firm and agency, and we work only in the healthcare space and almost exclusively in aesthetics, derm, plastics. Yep. So, but as a full service agency, we really focus on all aspects of marketing. So this could be anything from logo and brand development, messaging and stories, to developing websites, to SEO, to drive leads, email marketing, social marketing, online reputation, practice management, really anything that falls under the umbrella of marketing, as long as it's in healthcare and it's with a derm or plastic that we work with, we are here for them. So we've been doing this for a long time. I've also been in this industry for a very long time, in a couple different roles, for working for pharmaceutical companies, and even as a pharmaceutical sales rep. So I am very passionate about this, and very, I'm excited about this topic today, because a lot of times in marketing, they only want to hear about how to get new leads, and really this how to, cross market is so much more important for the practice, and, a lower hanging fruit, so to say. So,
yes. And I know you and I have talked so much about, again, in hallways between lectures and all of this good stuff, but you and I have talked too about how we have the same goal for our clients, which is not letting the people that they serve, i.e. their patients, just walk out the door after one service. And you look at it from a marketing perspective versus here at Shorr Solutions, we and our team look at it from a processes and protocols standpoint, right? So we are not marketers. We don't claim to be marketers. And that's where I always love, but we know, that the practice needs processes and protocols, and we know that the practice needs marketing. So that's where we have this conversation. And
yes,
what is, we see so often that a patient inside of and again, we're talking now about the elective space. We're not talking about oncology or cardiology, right? We're talking about the elective space. And we see so often that a patient might come in for one service and have no idea about the other services that that practice provides. And then they end up going somewhere else for their injectables if they came in for surgery, or they go somewhere else for their surgery if they came in for injectables. And it's simply because the practice didn't do a great job of letting the patient know. So what would you say are, and I know from a process and protocol standpoint, what I recommend, right? I would love to hear from you. What are, let's say, the top 3 marketing tips that you would give, and tips or tactics, we'll say, that you
Okay.
would give?
All right. So this is a great question. And it's actually one of the reasons that my company was even founded, because I didn't even really mean to start Goldman Marketing Group. I was just consulting for a dear friend and colleague, Dr. Rebecca Fitzgerald. And for those of you listening that know her, she's an amazing world-renowned injector, right? And her practice was so busy. But what I quickly found when I was consulting with her practice is that her patients were all going down the street for their laser treatments to these med spas down the streets. And at first I was so surprised. So I did a quick survey. Guess what? Turns out none of her patients knew she offered laser treatments. Seems so obvious, really wasn't. So we made some really quick changes. And what we did is we put some information in the waiting room, a menu of services brochure, a DVD reel, started sending out some email blasts about it. And sure enough, as soon as people found out we offered those treatments, they already loved the practice. And so they started getting busy and they started wiping the dust off of those lasers. So that really showed me that a lot of these things, it's not rocket science. There's really small little tricks and, techniques that you can use that to really shift the needle here. So I guess, part number 1 is your waiting room marketing and making sure.
We call that the reception area, right? We say
you're right, not a waiting room, because you don't want to wait.
Yes,
better.
That's it. And I say, some people listening would say, Mara, that's not a word that you use, right? And I'll admit that when I say people, I mean Jay Shorr, right? He would say so. But yes, so tell me more about what you recommend when it comes to that reception area marketing.
Yeah. So I think that patients come in usually for a reason. Very few patients are just like, tell me what you think to make me look better. Most patients they've heard about Botox or their friend got a Fraxel or whatever it might be, and they're coming in for this specific line or wrinkle or spot. So I think that in the waiting room is your reception area, is your golden marketing opportunity to make sure that people understand all of the services you offer, whether that is probably doing all of the above, but having a menu of services sitting out that's clear and understandable of the injectables that you offer and the laser treatments and the med spa treatments and the body contouring or whatever it is in a fashion that's understandable. Of course, most people have TVs in their waiting room. So I think that's an easy place to put some marketing that can rotate. And I think also it's important to kind of do this in the intake paperwork that hopefully is not paper anymore. Hopefully you guys are all using digital forms, but whether it's paper or digital, you do have some sort of intake process. And right there is an opportunity to add something called a cosmetic questionnaire that is a great place to allow people and give them a space to kind of think outside the box and think beyond this brown spots on my chest that I don't like about something else. And I think it's a great idea for a cosmetic questionnaire to not just have a bunch of words written down, but sometimes even images or explanations. Do the tops of your hands ever bother you? Do you feel like your hands are aging? Every woman is going to look down and be like, well, yeah, I guess they do kind of look like my mom's hands now that you say it. And even though that might not be what they're coming in for, that's a really easy way to cross market, because all of us women, no matter how old you are, your hands start looking like your mom's at some point.
Right. Yes. And what I love too, Risa, that you said about that and how you are phrasing it, not only with the addition of photos, but that you talk about in a very easy to understand debacle, right? That they would understand, right? So you're talking about brown spots. Do your hands look wrinkled?
Correct. I'm not going to say, do you have hyperpigmentation or sun damage? Because these are our industry terms. We're going to say, are there brown spots that bother you? Would you like your lips to be plumper? Would you like your jawline to be tighter? And, these are things that people can understand. And like you said, if you put a picture with it, everyone is like, oh yeah, I would love for this jawline to be a little tighter. You can help with that.
Exactly. And so often people just don't know. They may either not know that the client, our client, right? They may not know that the
Mhm.
practice does it, but they may not even know that that is a potential solution to something that's been bothering them, right? So if you talk
Yes,
about
exactly.
dark under eye circles, people may say, oh, well, I've tried a cream from a drugstore and it doesn't work. Well, we have some other solutions
Mhm.
to that, and they have no idea.
Yes. And
And
so these brochures and even like a DVD reel or actually a full hardback book, like a before and after photo book, people just flip through and they will find themselves in one of these photos. Wow. I have those little wrinkles right above those smoker lines above my lips. Like, wow, I didn't really know that that was treatable. I thought that was just something I had to deal with because my mom and grandma had them too. And it's really soft selling because you're not selling them anything. You're just showing them all the amazing things that nowadays in aesthetic medicine providers are able to achieve.
exactly. And I then look at it from a process point of view where we say so often people think about, we'll have that patient fill that out upon intake when they
Mm.
first come to the practice. And so I say, well, two questions there. Number one, what does the practice do with this
Uh-huh.
form?
Good point.
And I find that so often they say, well, it sits in their patient profile and sometimes there's a physical chart. Most of the time it's their EMR and it's their patient profile. And I say,
Mhm.
so who looks at it? Well, it's just there.
You're
So
right.
we say, okay, then that means that the provider has basically a cheat sheet into what it
Yes.
is that this patient is looking at, and what interests them. You're giving
Mhm.
your providers a cheat sheet because the provider can then pull this up and say, so I know that you've come in today for your neurotoxin, but I see here that your thin lips might bother you. And
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about some options. Or you wanted more information on a bump in your nose. So let's talk about that. So I think with that, number one, we need to utilize it. So from a
Yes.
process standpoint, utilize it. And number two, I hear so often that on the marketing side, there's this really great, well worded, well pulled together cosmetic questionnaire, and it gets filled out the first time a patient comes in, and then that's it.
Never
So if you
again.
have a patient that's been coming to the practice, that's a very loyal patient, and if we use your former doctor client as an example, right? Or
Mhm.
your former client, maybe they are
Mhm.
still a client,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But we work with, as you do, right? Practices that have been in business anywhere from startup mode to 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
So say if you have a practice that's been in business that long, they have loyal patients. And I can say the human body is not the same 6 months later, 1 year later, 3 years later, 5 years later. And if you ask somebody 5 years ago what bothers them, it's not the same 5 years later. So
Yeah, that's a great point.
we always recommend either every visit or every 3 months,
Mhm.
right? Because if someone's coming in, especially for surgery, right, and they're in their surgical journey and they're coming in, then they come in for their pre-op, and then they come in for the surgery, and then they come in for their post-op, and then they might be at the practice once a week, every
Mhm.
couple of days. That's not what I'm talking about, but we recommend, let's bring this back up. Tell me what bothers you. I
Yeah.
have love handles now and I didn't 5 years ago. Or,
Mhm.
well, I don't sleep as well as I used to. So let's talk about, is that looking at a solution for the sleep? Is it looking at a solution for my skin? What are we doing
Mhm.
here? So
Absolutely.
it's
And,
important.
yeah, I've had a lot of clients though push back a little bit and say, well, I don't have
Yes.
time during the consult or I don't want to confuse them. And so something that I recommend is that on the marketing side, we can support that. I do think there is always a little bit of time to make room and you got to maximize your time. And the support staff can also help with that. But no matter what, I think that marketing can take the information that's input on this cosmetic questionnaire and then create drip campaigns out of it. So if someone says they were concerned about cellulite, but maybe that doctor didn't have time to touch on it because they were just all focused on facial rejuvenation and injectables. Well, guess what? The marketing team can start sending them once a month a little bit of education about cellulite treatments and what we have to offer. And maybe right then and there, it's too much money to combine with the face, but maybe 6 months from now, it won't be. And they'll be interested in starting it up again. So
Yes, we are going to take a slight break, a slight intermission, because what kind of business would we be if we didn't tell you about our own services? I want to take a minute and talk to you about the Converging Cascade course and all that it has to offer. We want you to be trained to acquire loyal patients and boost your revenue in your aesthetic practice. Now, with our Conversion Cascade online course, you and your team will be able to master 2 key things important to growing your aesthetic practice and becoming successful: acquiring patients and retaining new patients. So, let's talk about a couple of things. As a step-by-step sales funnel training, the course is designed specifically to help you and your team attract more patients, convert more calls to consults, convert consults to treatments and procedures, and to keep your patients coming back for more. Not only will our Conversion Cascade course help to strengthen and develop your team's phone and sales skills in order to acquire, convert, and retain loyal patients, it will serve as a valuable onboarding training tool for every new team member that joins your practice. Yes, every new team member that joins your practice. Plus, in the course, you will receive downloadable marketing checklists, phone scripts, conversion tracking tools, and more. So sign up for the course to get started on increasing your revenue and acquiring and retaining new and existing patients. Yes, how to acquire and how to keep them coming back for more. It only takes approximately 4 hours to complete. You can finish it at your own pace and you'll have lifetime access. Yes, that is for the lifetime of the course. And a special thank you for being our podcast listener. We'll give you 20% off. Yes, 20% off. Just enter the discount code podcast. Yes, podcast, to start saving now. So click on the link in our show notes to sign up for the Conversion Cascade online course and start acquiring more patients now. I agree. And I think that that's where too, within that patient journey, having conversations about things like patient financing, and we always finding out, well, tell me a little bit more about what's stopping you today. What's keeping you from having this procedure today? It is in a way considered marketing, but it's marketing of the financing program, which makes it so that that patient is comfortable getting that procedure. So I think we look at, are you marketing the procedure? Are you marketing access to the procedure? But then continuing to keep that procedure top of mind. And what I always love too is looking at hitting somebody from multiple angles and from multiple places. So they're getting email, maybe you're doing a targeted campaign on social media. And then we also look at, okay, well, what about sending them a HIPAA compliant text message as well? Not on the same day that they're getting the email, but maybe it's a day apart, and checking in, and maybe you're having an event and not being afraid to say, hi, patient, you are one of our absolute favorite patients, and insert provider name here, specifically asked me to reach out to you for this particular event. And every patient can be someone's favorite patient. That's okay. Right? You're obviously not calling your horrible patient people that they decided not to go with, right? That you decided to turn down. But I think we all look at that. We all look at what the scripting and the verbiage and what is the process for that.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that. And if you're listening to this podcast, you obviously have an interest of this. So I would say, no matter how many tools you put into place, and you work with, Goldman Marketing Group or Shorr Solutions to come up with all the marketing and the processes, I also think that it's important to kind of build this somehow into the incentivization plans for your staff and show them that this is something that they should care about too. Because in general, this is not how they're paid. So I'm a big fan of, bonus plans can be created around things like cross marketing. So if someone comes in for one thing and that's what it's written on their EMR, and you're able to upsell them something else, what is that a point towards your bonus plan or whatever it might be? Or if a patient came in for one thing, they've been coming in for years, for laser treatments, and you're able to convert them to a body sculpting treatment, that's also kind of a cross promotion. And if you can work and incentivize your team financially, and, with words of affirmation about this, it will help really connect the dots and make sure that you're all aligned on the same goals.
I love that you said that. I also love that you called it a bonus and not commission, because I can't tell you how many times we run into issues with this. So obviously with commission, especially for our clients that are based here in the United States. And so for the practices that are here in the US, I know we have some Canadian listeners, but we want to make sure we're not violating any sort of stark
Mhm.
anti-kickback laws,
Mhm.
right? So that's where we want to make sure that we're going with a bonus structure. And we are always happy to talk to you about how to create a bonus structure. It's something we do for our clients all the time. So if you are a practice that has questions, please go ahead and reach out. But I will say that it's so important to make sure that you are making your team and those additional team members, your patient care coordinator, somebody, your front desk team, your estheticians, your medical assistants, look at the other pieces of the puzzle there. Not just so often I see people say, oh, well, the injector gets a bonus, but that's it, right? Look at all the
Yeah,
different pieces of the pie.
absolutely.
And there's so many great ways to do that, both for skincare and for
Mhm.
procedures. And
Absolutely.
what I always say is know what your baseline needs to be. So it's a bonus if they sell anything above this, right?
Mhm.
So above whatever this level is. Otherwise, you're just incentivizing somebody to do the bare minimum. So we want to make sure we're incentivizing them correctly.
Mhm.
We're all about incentives though for our clients and for their team members. So
Yeah,
I love a
I
good
love that.
incentive program, just doing it in a way that is financially feasible for the practice.
Absolutely. And that's so great to know that you guys help with that because anyone that's listening, I don't know any practice that shouldn't have a bonus structure set up,
Yes.
by a professional group. So that's a great thing that you offer.
Yes. And I know we, are already, almost 20 minutes in. And of course the time always flies when we're talking. I would love to know if you could give one more tip that somebody could implement
Yeah.
today. And maybe it's something that you're seeing either new or something that is like the most missed item in practices.
Mm. Okay, I think I have a good one for that. So
Okay.
everyone's always focused on the here and now and the immediate. And a lot of times in the practice, they're focused on like their number for that day or their numbers for that month. But I think it's always important for us to think big picture and think long term, not just as business owners or physicians, but also for patients. So what does that mean? Well, let's address our patients thinking about the long term. And whether you call it a 360 treatment plan or a year-long treatment plan, I think it's incredibly important that every patient that walks out the door knows your holistic, comprehensive, full picture approach for them. So yes, today they're coming in for Botox and fillers, but in 3 months, you want them to come in for Clear and Brilliant. And then 3 months later, they're going to come in for their, Pico laser or whatever it is, and vice versa. And they go down and then they come back for their lasers or their fillers, and they kind of understand how it wraps together in a full comprehensive approach for their facial rejuvenation or for whatever it is they might be coming for. And I think that that is a way to cross promote services without selling. And it's really something that patients are looking for. And so few practices that, in my experience, that I have seen actually do it because they're just focused on what they can sell that day. I've heard people say, oh, but if I give them a plan, they're just going to go elsewhere with it. And yes, it's true. It could happen, but it's also not rocket science. And, I think it's more likely that they're going to appreciate your approach and your thinking big picture and beyond just today with that patient. And that it'll really help them become loyal to your practice.
I agree. And I love everything you say. And from a process standpoint, I'd say, and get those appointments on the calendar for them before
Great
they
point.
leave so that
Yes.
we have, from a marketing standpoint, they're going home with it. They're going home with something that's branded to your practice. They're going home with that plan and we continue to keep them coming back. And I say that final piece is getting the next 2 or 3 appointments on the calendar for them. I always say, look, as women, we schedule our gynecology appointments, either 6 months
Yeah.
or a year out.
Mhm.
Anyone that schedules regularly with the dentist, we do that 6 months to a year
I
out.
have
And
my kids' entire year calendar of when they're going
yes,
to be off school. I put it in once. I mean,
exactly. So I think we just need to say, you know what, people are used to scheduling their treatments
Mhm.
that far out. We just need to ask and
Yeah.
use that scripting of, so your insert provider name here. She gave me a copy of the treatment plan. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled. I have a date. I know you love your 1 o'clock appointments. It's right after lunch. And so I have an appointment at 1 o'clock on Thursday, the insert date from here.
Mhm.
And go with that and let them be the ones to say no. And if they say,
Yes.
well, I don't know what I'm doing, say, I'll tell you what, let's go ahead. Let's put it on the schedule. Here's an appointment card. If they want an appointment card, here's an appointment card. And If you need to change it, give me a call maybe 1 to 2 weeks before the appointment, and we can go ahead and we can change that, because chances
Yeah.
are it's going to be on their calendar and they're going to start getting excited about it leading up to
Mhm.
it.
I love that you said that, because so many people are afraid it's too far out, and it's no, let's just put it on the calendar. Worst case, we reschedule, but at least it's here, and at least you can get the day and the time that you want that's going to work for you. And, we book up quickly, and, it's
Exactly.
all about helping the patient, and you're doing this for the patient. And to bring it back to this incentive plan, getting patients to schedule their follow-up and their future appointments for their full treatment plan can be a measure for this incentive plan as well, because I think that's one of the most effective things that a checkout desk can do, is to make sure that their next appointments are scheduled.
I think that's a great example of a great KPI, a key performance
Mhm.
indicator, right? Had do X%
Yeah.
of your patients book their next appointment at checkout. I think that's something
Mhm.
great that to be included. And either maybe it's not necessarily in a monthly bonus, but that could be something in an annual bonus and a performance review.
Mhm.
So that could be one of your key
Yeah.
performance indicators. So
Absolutely. Or like a weekly scorecard of what percentage of the patients this week scheduled their next appointment before they left. And,
yes,
give the
yes.
give the checkout desk like something to look for and to work towards as a team and get excited about.
I love this. I love this. And I hope to all of our listeners today, I hope that you get as geeked out and excited as Risa and I do about how to keep your patients not just coming back for more, but how to utilize these
Yeah.
marketing tools and tactics, marketing programs, and the processes inside.
Yeah.
Just continue to keep your existing patients that know you and love you, continue to keep them inside the practice. So with that, Risa, thank you so much for joining me today on Shorr Solutions, the podcast. I'm so glad that we were able to do this.
Yeah, thank you so much. We could talk about this for hours, but I really hope this was helpful. And if anyone thinks this sounds hard, just know it actually is pretty easy, and it's definitely far less expensive than just driving new patients. So I really encourage you to really focus in on the topics we've talked about
I
today.
wholeheartedly agree. And so if you have any questions, either about anything that I talked about or anything that Risa talked about today, her information is going to be in the show notes. But Risa, if someone wants to get a hold of you, what is the best way for somebody to get a hold of you so that either you or someone else at Goldman Marketing, but what is the
Yeah,
best way that they can reach you to really continue driving things forward?
I think send an email to info@goldman-marketing.com. It's probably the best place. And we're
Perfect.
quick to respond on email. So yeah, happy to help, even if you just have questions and use another marketing company. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and I'm happy to just help answer some quick questions
Perfect.
anytime.
Well, thank you so much again. And thank you everybody for listening. And that wraps up another episode of Shorr Solutions, the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yay.
So that wraps up today's episode of Shorr Solutions, the podcast. If we mentioned any web links, you can find them in our show notes. To work directly with me, Jay, and our award-winning team of consultants to increase your practice's efficiency, increase revenue, and decrease costs in your aesthetic practice, schedule a free consult with us today. We will help you establish and refine your aesthetic practice's protocols for maximum efficiency and productivity, decrease your expenses, and increase profit with our expert financial analysis of your practice. Attract more patients, convert calls to consults, convert consults to treatments, and keep patients coming back for more with our sales coaching and complimentary access to our Conversion Cascade online course. Recruit, hire, and improve your team members and manage any staff turnover with our human resource expertise, plus so much more. Head on over to the show notes and click on the link to schedule a free 30-minute consult with us today. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to spread the word and share this episode or one of your other favorites with your friends, colleagues, and the rest of your team. Remember to follow us on social media at Shorr Solutions and sign up for our e-newsletter. You'll learn all about our latest tips, tricks, blog posts, service announcements, videos, webinars, and more. Link to our social media channels and to sign up for our e-newsletter are, yep, you got it, in the show notes. See you next time. And remember, leave us a review and subscribe to our podcast for more incredible content. Thanks so much.